More secrets have been discovered about Trump's ongoing abuses of people seeking asylum at the southern border. Trump's policy asks ICE workers and detention center workers to do crimes against humanity, and they're doing them. Kirstjen Nielsen resigned as Secretary of Homeland Security this week. Remember, she's the one who took weeks and weeks to decide, but eventually acquiesced to putting kids in cages and having them ripped from their parents' arms at the southern border. There's no doubt that her replacement will be absolutely willing and able to commit crimes against humanity to the most vulnerable people in their darkest hour. Just imagine the lifelong trauma that a child faces when they've been ripped from their parents' arms with no explanation, no understanding, not saying goodbye. This is the same trauma that a child who's kidnapped would endure. A Washington newspaper reporter spoke of an incident where a father was tackled by 5 ICE officials trying to rip the little 5-year-old out of his arms. This is sick shit. Do I really have to go into the nightmares and the abandonment and the terror and the psychological horrific disorders these kids and their parents will have for the rest of their life because of what we did? The Trump administration used the mental well-being of children and their parents as a disincentive for other people thinking of coming to the U.S. Well, it hasn't stopped people from coming. And even though a court order told the Trump administration they cannot take children away from their parents in this manner at the border, they continued to do so for weeks and weeks. For these kids and their parents, their lives will never be the same again. You may be wondering how Trump could possibly get away with this. Well, by circumventing the spirit of the law, Trump made it a crime to ask for asylum. Trump's policy immediately deemed anyone who was crossing the southern border with children as a human trafficker. This paved the way for Trump and his evil plan to immediately put the kids in state custody. Unfortunately, this is only the beginning of a nightmare for these immigrants who are fleeing nations that the U.S. had a hand in destabilizing. These nations are so dangerous that these parents decided it was safer to travel thousands of miles on foot and come to the U.S. than stay in their countries and risk death. Gangs threaten families and their children in these nations to the point where they have no other choice: leave or die. Sadly, they end up leaving one nightmare, walking thousands of miles just to reach another nightmare. Now comes the twist. It doesn't end there. As you probably heard, thousands of children were taken away, but someone somehow forgot to write down who they were and where they were taken to. As of today, there are over 100 of these kids who still haven't been located. Last month, there was more very upsetting news. It was found that 80% of the children being trafficked as human sex slaves in our nation had ties to the foster care system in the U.S. This is the same system that we just put those kids in. But there's more. Jonathan White, who leads the Health and Human Services Department effort to reunite migrant children with their parents, said removing the children from their sponsored homes would be too traumatizing, so we're not even going to try. He said the government should focus on reuniting the children currently in custody, not those who have already been released to sponsor homes. The bottom line is, desperate and vulnerable parents seeking asylum had their children ripped from their arms, taken away with no notice. They could do nothing about it, and now their children are gone. Oh, but it gets worse. DeVos, Trump's Secretary of Education, is a religious lunatic. She and her family support an adoption agency that coerces pregnant young mothers using cruel psychological tactics into giving up their children for adoption. Adopting a baby in the United States is a very lucrative field for agencies. DeVos and her agency, along with the Trump administration, are taking children who have loving parents and making a profit by selling them to white Christian-only parents who are not in the LGBTQ community. They're making money selling people's children away. Last month, a report came back telling a terrifying tale of sexual abuse and rape of these same exact children. While in our nation's custody, we allowed adult staff members and older children, migrants, to sexually violate thousands and thousands of children. Days later, news reporters were making statements saying that the government cannot be held responsible for the rape and sexual assault of children in their care. That is disgusting. It doesn't end there. This week, reports surfaced about families being kept with their children in solitary confinement. It doesn't take a genius to read the UN's report that solitary confinement causes severe mental illness and is considered torture. You'd think this is all, but nope, there's more breaking news. This week, a 28-page detailed report surfaced talking about teen girls and young women and their menstrual cycle. It talked about their periods, talked about pregnancy and the reason for pregnancy, whether it was rape or not. Why in the world would the US government keep track of teenagers and young women's periods? Today, it came out that they are tracking migrant girls' periods to stop them from getting abortions. Yes, you heard me correctly. Look it up.
Thank you very much. Are you considering child separations again? Can you rule that out, Mr. President? You wouldn't start separating the children again, would you, Mr. President? Separating the children, by the way. Would you consider doing it again?
You understand? President Obama separated the children. Those cages that were shown, I think they were very inappropriate. They were built by President Obama's administration, not by Trump. President Obama had child separation. Take a look. The press knows it. You know it. We all know it. I'm the one that stopped it. President Obama had child separation. Now, I'll tell you something. Once you don't have it, that's why you see many more people coming. They're coming like it's a picnic, because let's go to Disneyland. President Obama separated children. They had child separation. I was the one that changed it. Okay, thank you very
Well,
much.
what's President Trump going to do? Are you going to bring it back is the question. Would you bring it back?